Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel, and today I'm going to be showing you my drift build for the Dinka RT3000. Now in this video I'm going to be running you through all of the customization options you need to put on this car to go ahead and drift it, and then after that I'm going to be showing you some gameplay of some additional tips and tricks to go ahead and give you some pointers and help you out to be able to drift this car a lot easier. Now if you do enjoy today's video, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more. And if you're interested in seeing more drifting content like this, I'd highly recommend you check out my drifting playlist in the top right. Finally, before we get into it, I'd just like to say if you have any other drift build suggestions you'd like me to make a video on in the future, or any other content suggestions, I'd be more than happy to hear from you guys down below. But with all of that being said, hopefully you enjoyed today's video and let's get into it. Now let's get into the build itself. Now really quick, I do want to go ahead and say that before you drift this thing, do remember to go ahead and lower your car in the vehicle stance option in your interaction menu, as it gives you a ton less grip, and it's pretty much the reason this car has got so little traction. But let's go take it to the mod shop, and I'm going to run you through the performance upgrades that you need to equip first, the essentials for the drift tune, and then after I'll show you my cosmetic choices in case you want to replicate my build as is. So first things first, I'd recommend for the brakes you equip the stock brake option, as if you upgrade your brakes, slowing down, adjusting your drift, it's gonna kill off your drift a lot easier and it will slow down your momentum a lot, which you don't really want. So I recommend for brakes, just leave them as they are. Now for your performance upgrades, such as your engine, your transmission and your turbo tuning, go ahead and equip the maximum option possible for all of them, so the EMS4, race transmission and turbo tuning. Now the reason for this is that the increased power is going to make the car a lot more tail happy, and as well the bonus with the race transmission is that the mid-drive speed boost will be a lot more effective, which makes it a lot easier to chain your drifts together and draw them out. Now for the suspension, unlike most of the other cars from the tuners update, I'd actually recommend you go ahead and lower it to the maximum option possible, the competition suspension. Now this will give you a slight grip increase, which you might think is counterintuitive, but the car as it is already incredibly tail happy and does not need the additional lack of traction from the stock or the standard suspension options. So if you leave it at the lowest option, it gives the car a little tiny bit more grip, which keeps it a lot more stable and makes it easier to go ahead and chain drifts together. That's just my preference. If you want it to be a bit more tail happy, go ahead and leave it stock. And that also goes for the spoiler. I would actually recommend on this build you equip a spoiler. I just went with the low one. Of course, if you feel like it's not slippery enough for you, you can of course take it off, but personally I think the car is the most stable and best suited for drifting with a spoiler and with the lowest suspension option. Now for your tire enhancements, I recommend using either the standard or bulletproof tires. They don't affect the performance, but I recommend you equip one of these instead of the low grip tires, as the car, as I've already said, is incredibly tail happy as is and does not need the lack of traction. With the low grip tires, I find the car to be a little less controllable and more twitchy, which makes it a lot harder to draw your drifts out longer. So personally, I recommend just stick with the standard tire options, no low grips for this one. So those are the essentials out of the way. Now I'm going to be showing you the cosmetic options for the vehicle. So firstly, on armor, I went with the maximum upgrade on 100%. For the front bumper, I went with the street bumper. And for the rear, I went ahead and left it stock as is. Moving on to the engine block, I used the camo valve covers, and also for the cam belt, I used the camo cam belt cover. For the strut brace, I used the titanium strut brace. And then for the air filter, I went ahead and left it stock. Moving on to the exhaust, I used the twin chrome tip exhausts. And then the headlight covers I left stock. The fenders are the side vented fenders. The grille is the intercooler with the water sprayer. And in hoods, I use the single vented hood. For the interior design, I went with the semi-stripped interior. I also went with the stock doors, and as well as that, I left the seats as they are as well. I left them stock too. The steering wheel is the Sprint Professional. And then moving on to the lights, I use the Arena War white headlights. So they're not available in this shop. You need to go to the Los Santos Car Meet or the Arena Garage. I don't have a livery on this build, so just stock as is. And then for the mirrors, I went with the stock mirrors. The plate is the blue on white plate with my Toge license plate, the custom one from iFruit. And the color I have is Ultra Blue Classic. So I think it's number 53 right there. So that's for both the primary and secondary color. And if you do the matte pearlescent glitch, or well, as it's normally called, I use the dark steel pearlescent color as well. Moving on, I have the dark steel trim color as well, the ice white accent color, and I have my cruise emblem equipped. For the roof, I just left it stock as is. And moving on to the splitter, I went with the plastic one. Now for the spoiler, we went with the low spoiler for this build. And for the sun strip, we left stock. Suspension is lowered, transmission and turbo are maxed out, and the wheels are the number 27 option. They are the Cosmo Mark IIIs under the street category. Now the color is just the normal alloy color. We don't have any custom tire design. Tires are bulletproof and the white tire smoke is equipped. And finally, we have the light smoke window tint equipped. But that is it for the build, so let me know your thoughts on it down below. I personally really like it, but I'd love to hear your feedback as well down below. But now, let's go ahead and get into the drifting itself, and as well, with a little bit of tips and tricks and pointers on the side to get you guys nice and ready to take this car on. It is not as hard as it seems, but yeah, let's get into it. So the RT3000, as many of you may know, is one of the best drift cars in the game at the minute, and as such, the control on this thing is brilliant. This thing is super nice to take through the corners at really any kind of speed, but in my opinion, it really shines for that low to medium speed kind of street drifting kind of thing, or around little tracks. So you can see here, I'm just kind of taking it around some urban areas and that, and it is thriving through here. So really, I'd recommend you learn how to do the mid-drive speed boost, as with most of these cars, or double clutching as some people call it. I will have a guide for that in the top right, but that goes with most of these drift builds. But to be honest, this car doesn't need it as much as some of the others do. This car has enough power and really a lot of wheel spin and tail happiness from the power the car has on its own, that the mid-drive speed boost isn't essential to getting this thing out, but it really helps if you want to get this thing going for some really drawn out, really long chain together drifts, or that sort of thing. I'd highly recommend it. But even if you don't know how to do that, this thing will still be fine. A couple things you will want to keep in mind though are that the back end will try and tend to kick out at times a little bit if you maybe take an entry a little bit too aggressively, that sort of thing. So just watch yourself with the throttle a little bit. Just make sure you're not putting down too much throttle, too much gas when you're entering the corner, just to make sure the back end doesn't force you into a spin. It can happen. It's happened to me quite a few times, but it just takes a little bit of trial and error, a little bit of practice. Feather the throttle as you're going through your drift. Try not to go ahead and be really heavy footed and you'll be fine. Counter steering, of course, another thing you'll need to use for most drift cars, to be honest. Does help quite a lot with getting those tighter drifts down, but this car in general is super controllable, and anyone with like a medium sort of skill level of drifting will find this absolutely fine. This thing is super nice to use and is personally one of my favorite drift cars now. But let me know your thoughts on it down below. How do you find it for drifting? Do you think that this style of drifting is really your thing, or do you prefer the low grip tires, or do you even prefer the old way of drifting? I'm interested to hear your thoughts down below. If you did enjoy, leave a like and subscribe. Thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.